Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to this stream. And in my monitor, it's always something. Happy Sunday. Hope you're doing well. Major Gamer Geek, good to see you in chat. Hope you're doing fantastic. Try it one more time and get that monitor turned on. Got a couple of resumes to go through today. I'm only going to be streaming for about an hour or so. I got a bunch of stuff to do today. I might stream again later tonight, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I got at least two reviews to go through, or two resumes to go through. It doesn't want to come on. That thing's gonna be a pain in the butt. Let's leave it off for now. Y'all know who I am. It's right down here, techinterview.guide. So yeah, welcome to the stream. Major Gaming Geek, good to hear from you. Doing well. Good job, good job. So yeah, so got two resumes to go through today, and then I gotta jump out a little early, so I'm gonna get set up for that. But welcome to the stream. We talked last week about 2023 goals. Thursday we got kind of the replan of how we're going to revamp the website, and then like getting the YouTube clips and stuff on the website, kind of reorganize the layout of what we got on the website. This week, what do we have planned for this week? So I'm doing a live stream for work on Thursday about building a live stream for 3D printing. And so I'm going to be using a company's API to actually build a live stream. And I'm going to have that live stream actually stream probably one of the Bamboo printers. And so I've got to figure out how to either run cameras all the way over to the other workbench or figure out how to stream through the Bamboo software if that's going to be possible. If not, I'm going to bring the Bamboo over here to this desk and I'll just put the camera over here and watch it go. But it'll be a little loud being right next to me. But I want to do like a small multicolor print and then give away that print on the stream. So come by, check that out. That'll be on the Postman live stream, not this one. So it'll be on a different platform, but it'll be, let me post that link over here. So it'll be twitch.tv. I'll say it's just Postman. I want to double check that that's right. Get Postman. Someone else took the name that we wanted. So you can go follow that channel, and we'll be streaming over there on Thursday. So you can come check that out. All right, let's dive in here. Let me go figure out my browser setup. So I got one person that sent me in a resume for a private review. I did say send in a PDF file, and they sent me a not PDF file. So I got to go pull that in a way that's anonymized. So yeah, if you want a free resume review, I'm happy to do them, but please send it in a PDF format. There's too many hoops to jump through otherwise to try to convert files into something that I can show where it's not showing your name and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, let me pull this up and then we'll get this going. So yeah, as always, if you've got questions about interview preparation, company research, anything like that to help kind of kickstart your job hunt for the week, let me know. Feel free to drop that in chat at any time, and we'll answer those questions kind of as we go. Creative Null, good to see you. Good to see you streaming a lot more lately, and thanks for the follow on Twitter the other day. Creative Null also does a really cool channel. I think the last time I watched you stream, you were doing some stuff with Vim. So yeah, go give Creative Null a follow as well. All right, so that's renamed. Let's see if I can. Okay, so I had to make a change to hide everything about this person's name because they left a lot of stuff on here. All right. So let's see. Pull that file over to here. And then I got one more to do. No, not that one. That was the private one. It should be the other public one. There it is. All right. So this next, or the other resume that we got, the person did not anonymize their name, which is totally all right, because you acknowledge in the resume review form that whatever details you've got on there, like you're cool with everybody on the internet seeing. They did change their email and their phone number, but their name is real. All right, so let me go switch over to that screen. And then I gotta go find the browser. I think it's this one. Yeah, there we go. All right, let me resize that browser window so you can all see it. We'll get started here. What do I think of the current state of the tech industry and all the layoffs going on? That's a good question. Let's dive in on that before we do the resume reviews. And I know my clip thing doesn't work, but I'm gonna pull this up here just so I can see what's going on. All right, so we had a question come in from chat. What do I think about the current state of the tech industry and all the layoffs going on? That's a loaded question for sure. So in my career, this is the third like major sort of reset that I've seen in my career, and I've been doing this almost 27 years. It'll be 27 years in April since I graduated college and been in the industry. The first one was in 2001. It was driven by just ridiculous valuations of companies, and then investors realized, like, wait, your company's not actually worth $1 billion to sell, like, pet toys online. And so investors started fleeing, and that kind of tanked the economy a little bit, and the whole tech industry crashed. 2008, 2009, it was mostly driven by real estate. This one was more like global economic pressure, partly because of pandemic, and partly just bad economics all around the world, to be honest. And so I think it's going to take a while to recover from this. At the same time, I kind of shared on the stream a while back that I think to some degree the stuff that's going on in the economy right now and all the layoffs in tech to some degree is a bit of an overreaction for some companies. Some companies certainly went on hiring sprees over the last year or two, and they're like, hey, we've got all this VC money, all this venture capital money. We've got all these investors. We've got all this money. We're seeing a lot of growth. A lot of people working from home and coming up with a lot of services and things like that. Zoom took off and so on as far as like business. And then everyone's like, okay, well, everybody's got to start coming back to the office. And so Zoom's price started going down. And companies hired like crazy. And when companies hire like crazy like that, tech salaries get overinflated, like drastically inflated. And so all these companies are like spending all this cash, hiring talent. And then as soon as they start getting questions from their investors like, hey, how are you going to be profitable? How am I going to start getting how are we going to get our money back? Then companies are like, oh, yeah, we need to We need to actually do something. And so they start making a push for profitability to keep their investors happy. And the best way to get closer to profitability is to cut your expenses. And your number one expense in a tech company is going to be your salaries, especially when you're overpaying people. And I do say overpaying legitimately. I think some salaries are just stupid as far as what their salary ranges have been. And so I kind of said on the stream a little while back, I think we're going to see a bit of a reset when it comes to salaries, where the upper range of salaries and salary bands that we see on job posts, and during interviews and negotiations and so on, I think is going to be lower than we've seen in the past. At the same time, I think companies are going to start being a lot more careful about who they hire. And this is another consequence that we see when companies overhire people, have to do a layoff, and then realize, like, oh, wait, we just laid off a bunch of people. We still have work to do. So we actually do need those people, but we need to hire them again at less money. So we need to hire people with the same skill, but for less money than we hired this other person. So just going to grab some names out of chat, like Creative Null. We hired Creative Null for 300 grand a year, and they did good work, but 300 grand a year is a lot of money. So we're going to let them go. We're going to try and hire someone else for like 200 grand a year and hope that they've got the same amount of skill. And generally speaking, they're going to have the same amount of skill. But what we're going to see is companies being a lot more picky about who they hire. And so while the job market is already tough for people, especially trying to find new jobs in tech, that's already tough. I think we're going to start seeing companies be a lot more picky about who they hire, and that's going to start excluding people from boot camps and coding programs and stuff like that. So I think the overreaction that I talked about, I think the overreaction that I see happening are the really, really big companies, like the FANG level companies. Do they really need to be doing like gigantic layoffs and hiring freezes? And I've heard in the last week or two that signed job offers for internships got pulled, and so people thinking that they were going to have an internship now have no longer have an internship for the spring or summer, and now they're scrambling like, what do I do? And even fewer companies are trying to hire interns because they want experienced people, because they don't want to hire people unnecessarily. One thing I posted on Twitter this week myself was in response to this guy that I follow on Twitter, who posts a lot of really good information, and people contact him with insider information about, like, hey, my company's doing layoffs. And so he'll post stuff about that online. And he posted something about, what has happened here, where, companies went on drastic hiring sprees where they were just hiring, like, oh, you got a pulse, you know how to spell the word Python, like, you're hired. And we're going to pay you ridiculous amount of money, and then turning around and laying those people off. In the last position where I had the ability to hire people, I was a director of engineering. I went to my CEO and I said, I need to add one more person to my team. Team's a little bit stretched. I want to hire one more person. He's like, well, we have the budget, we have money in the bank. Why don't you hire like 3 people? I said, I don't need 3 people. I need 1. And he's like, well, we might as well like interview a bunch of people and just have a bunch of extra people just in case. I'm like, no, I'm not going to spend your money unnecessarily. And he was kind of like, huh? He's like, we have the money, like, just go hire. And I'm like, no, I only need 1 person. Like, even if you tell me like go hire 3 people, I'm still only going to hire 1 person because I only need 1 person on my team. He's like, all right, go hire your 1 person. And we did. And then when the next time I needed 1 person on my team, I went back to him. I'm like, all right, it's been 4 or 5 months. I need to hire 1 more person on my team. He's like, okay, no problem. Because he knew that I was being careful with the company's money. And so I was able to build that trust with my CEO about, I don't need 10 people on my team. I need 1. And he was really good about that. But we started to see companies do this like several times over the course of my career. I've seen this happen a bunch, where companies hire like crazy and then they either lay off or they like really cool their hiring for a long time. So I think the overreaction that we see from the big FANG companies is like suddenly the FANG companies are like, oh, we care about profitability. It's like you've got billions of dollars in the bank. And yes, they overpay their employees. And yes, their headcount is huge. And I get it. That's a gigantic, like financial concern for their company. But to turn around and say we're going to lay off like 10,000 people or 20,000 people or whatever, and like have these massive layoffs, I think is a bit of an overreaction. At the same time, some companies are going to be like, oh, cool, there's a bunch of like Amazon engineers or Google engineers or Facebook engineers or Meta engineers. Like all these people are going to be on the market now. We can start hiring those people. They're really smart. Well, if you look at who they're laying off their underperformers. And so companies like, do we want to hire an underperformer? Like they were an underperformer. Like, yeah, they were at a FANG company. They got into a FANG company, so they're clearly smart. They can get through an interview process, but they were an underperformer. So do we hire them anyway, or do we continue to look for other people? The other consequence that I think that we're going to see from this is an over-reliance on LeetCode. Because we're seeing all these people from Goldman Sachs and Salesforce and like all these big companies that use LeetCode style interview processes really heavily, I think we're going to start to see an over-reliance on LeetCode again for interview challenges to prove that you're smart. Because our interview process is one that requires a lot of demonstration of your skill in order to get the job. And that sucks. I think that that's a horrible way to do interviews. LeetCode problems are not good indicators. I've been there. I've been an interviewer. I've built interview processes, and doing little code challenges like LeetCode are not a good indicator of whether somebody's going to be a good long-term person on your team. There are better ways of determining who's going to be a good long-term hire than somebody who can grind out LeetCode. Does that mean LeetCode's bad? No. You're going to face LeetCode, so you should go study LeetCode. If you want to go study LeetCode, here's a link on how to do it better. But I think that companies need to sort of wake up and go, hey, this LeetCode thing's not what we need. We can sit here and debate like all the other things that they should be doing instead. But I think it's going to take a while to kind of reset this. And we've seen this going on now for almost a year. I mean, a lot of these major layoffs started happening about a year ago. And it's still going, but now it seems to be hitting bigger companies, and bigger companies are like, oh gosh, we need profitability, so we better lay off people too. And it's like, yeah, that is going to help in the short term, but then you're still going to have work to get done. You've got less people on your team. The people remaining on your team are going to feel pressure to do additional work, extra hours because they don't want to lose their job. And I think, so another consequence that I think we're going to see from this is a lot of people overworking and burning out. They're going to end up leaving that job, leaving even fewer people to do the job. And so the result of this is companies are going to realize that they're making a mistake by laying off so many people all at one time like this. That yes, it's reducing their headcount and it's reducing their salaries, but it's putting more pressure on the people that stay. The people that stay are going to burn out and they're also going to leave, which means you still need to hire people. And so I think companies are still going to be hiring. They're just going to be a lot more selective about who they hire. And they're also going to want to be hiring people who are willing to put in a little extra effort, but with a slightly deflated salary because they want to start being more careful about their bottom line. I think it's going to take a while to kind of reset all of that. At the same time, I mean, I've said this on the stream, and it's I know it's kind of a controversial sort of stance, but I think tech salaries in general have been overinflated for a long time. I've worked with a lot of people who code, and are our collective skills really worth like 300 grand a year, 400 grand a year, 500 grand a year with total comp packages and stock options, whatever? Is it really worth that much money? I say no. But that's me. I think we don't need to be paying people $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 to do these jobs. The people that are inventing new technologies, like, yes, they should be compensated. But getting a FANG level company just to get the dollar bills, you're going to be doing the exact same work as if you go work at a startup and make a little less money. And I would wager you're going to see more impact of your work if you go get a job at a startup or earlier stage company or a private company than to go get a job at FANG. And that's why I've been saying for a long time, like, don't chase a FANG job. Like, there are a lot of good things that come from that. It gives you a good boost in your career, but at the end of the day, you're doing the same coding that you'd be doing anywhere else. Major Gamer Geek says, I have a good job at a bigger company and I'm not a low performer, but you can still be hit. Yeah, anybody can lose their job. Nobody's irreplaceable. But yeah, I mean, there's certainly things that you can do. I was chatting with someone on, I think they were on the stream on Thursday, where they're like, yeah, I just got hit with a layoff. And I'm like, ooh. And they're like, yeah, now I got to go back and rebuild my resume. And I was making a point of like, waiting until you lose your job to build your resume is not the right approach. You need to build the resume while you're working so that every new project you do, every new initiative you take on, every impact that you see that your work has at your job, start getting that on your resume. Even if you're not like interviewing to change a job or anything like that, you still want that resume to be prepared. So if you do lose your job, you got a resume ready tomorrow, not like, oh gosh, I need to sit down for the next week and scratch my head about all the things I did at that job over the past year, 2 years, 5 years, and try to remember all those things that you did. So, all right, cool. Let's see, did all of that work? All right, so that's part of the problem. I'm just trying to see why my I think that's why my clip thing doesn't work. It was missing the FFmpeg application. Cool. You've been in the industry for over 20 years. Yeah, right there with you. It's Woodlegs. Good to see you in chat. Does that mean that getting a job for a new grad is going to be even more difficult? Yeah, I think it is. Unfortunately, I think it's gonna make it a lot more challenging for new people in tech. But there are ways that new people so companies are still hiring. That's the thing. Companies are still hiring. Their expectations are just a little bit higher than where you are as far as your skill set. And so you have to really stand out to companies. You can go check out my YouTube channel. Rearranged all my buttons here. You can go check out my YouTube channel. I've got a lot of like little clips and stuff where I've talked in the past about what kinds of projects should you be building? How can you stand out to a company? And it really comes down to, how do we research a company? How do we really know what a company wants so that when we apply for that job, we can really stand out? And the worst thing you can do is come up with a very generic resume that you're blasting out to everybody. You want a resume to be really tailored to that job where you can say, this is the impact I'm going to have at your company. And so by putting a resume together, even as a new grad, where you can say, this is what I've done, this is the impact that it had, as opposed to, this is what I've done. Now, if that's all you have on your resume, it's like, I did this thing, I did this thing, I had an internship here, and I worked on this project. That's fine. But if you can share the impact of what you did, that's going to stand out a lot more to a company. And so the general advice that I give when I'm doing resume reviews, and I've got 2 to go through, and they're going to have to be quick today because I can only stream for another half hour. When you build out a resume, my general advice is build a big resume. Put everything on there, every skill, every project, every little thing you've ever done, every little library that you've included in a project, because you don't know what a particular company is going to care about. But you're not going to put this gigantic resume out there for people to see. What you're going to do is you're going to constantly add to this enormous resume all the time. And when you're ready to apply for a particular job, you find that job post, and you do a little bit of research on what is this company looking for, what's important to them, what initiatives are they taking on. And it takes more than just reading their website and go, oh, you help people like lower their energy bill, or oh, you're a financial technology company and you work with blockchain. Like you need a deeper understanding of what the company's doing, and that's where networking really helps. I've also got videos on YouTube about how to network effectively. And if you need an introduction, I can make intros on LinkedIn as well. So you can go follow me on LinkedIn. Um, and I've got other information that I can share about like how to how to effectively network with people. So you can go find the YouTube videos on that. Because networking is going to get you a job faster, because it's going to give you a better insight into what that company cares about. And if you know what that company cares about, you can tailor your resume a little bit faster. So take this gigantic resume, and when you're ready to apply for a job, you make a copy of it, and then you trim away everything that that company's not going to care about. If you're in a hurry for a job and you decide like I want to apply to 100 companies this week, that's going to take you a minute, because it takes a couple of minutes per resume when you're kind of in the mindset of like, okay, this is the company, this is what they care about, this is what I want to highlight and showcase on my resume, to go through and like reorder things. But it's worthwhile, because now when I read that resume as a hiring manager, when I read that resume, I'm like, oh wow, this person does exactly what we need. Because you're not putting every programming language you've ever learned and every library you've ever used and every little project that you did, and you're not going to list absolutely everything on that resume. You're going to trim it back down to one page and only show them what's relevant to them. If you have extra room, you can put other stuff back, but start by taking away all the unnecessary stuff. If you know Python and JavaScript and you're applying for a Python job, Python should be very prominent on your resume. I'm a Python developer who also knows JavaScript, is what you want to look like when they look at that resume. They don't want to see that you're a JavaScript developer who tinkers with Python. They want to see that you're a Python developer and you happen to know JavaScript. So you want to list Python first as the programming language that you know. Any projects that you've done in Python, you want to put those on the resume, not your JavaScript projects, because you want to look like that Python developer that they want to hire. So that's what I mean. Like trim away the stuff that they're not going to care about. And if you need extra room, then put other stuff back in. But if you start by building up that really big resume, you're already at an advantage to have something that you can just trim away from. Once you do a couple of those resumes, you'll start to recognize like, okay, when I apply for a Python job, like this is my Python resume, this is my JavaScript resume, and you can kind of make it a little more generic, but you still want to show to a company, this is how I'm going to be relevant in that role that you're hiring for. You want to look highly relevant to them. That's what's going to make you stand out. So you can still get a job as an entry level dev. I see people all the time getting jobs. I help people all the time get jobs where they're brand new in the industry, they have zero experience. And just by standing out to the company, they get into the interview process. And then it's on you. You have to pass their interview process. And sometimes the company will interview you and go, you're a great candidate. You just don't have the experience that we need. You don't have as much of the experience as we need. And so they'll still say no. But if you can get into those interviews and start practicing those interviews, you're going to learn how to talk to people. You're going to learn how to interview. That's going to make you better for the next interview. So the first couple of interviews, don't make those the job you really want. Burn some interviews, get some practice, get the jitters out, get the nerves out, feel more comfortable about it, and then go apply for the job that you really want. And you'll perform much better in that interview. But if your first interview is that dream job, you're going to be nervous and you're going to make mistakes. We all make mistakes in interviews. But you're going to make mistakes in that interview, and you're going to miss your shot at the one company where you really wanted to work. So let's get some practice in there. Cool. Let's dive over these resume reviews. All right. So this first one came in, and let me just go find the notes on this one. Nope, not that one. There it is. All right, so the notes that came in on this one, they're looking for format and word choice. They're looking for like a really high experience kind of role, like staff level, principal level kind of engineer. So let's take a look at what they got on the resume here. So they got fake name, cell phone, so on, living in Canada, and they've got their email address and presumably some kind of portfolio site on here. Professional goals. My goal is to become proficient in all aspects of computer programming with focus on efficient networking protocols and embedded security. This is way too general. You do not want to put this on a resume. This does not tell me as a hiring manager how you're going to bring value to my company. To bring value to my company, your professional goal needs to be aligned with my professional goal. So it's fine to have a professional goal that you want to be proficient in all aspects of programming, but I'm hiring for a very specific type of programmer, very specific kind of role. So you should be telling me how you are effective in that role. This is kind of where it's like you kind of have to already do the job to get the job. So this opening statement is far too generic. I'm just gonna like pass over this. In fact, I know some people that would probably stop reading the resume at that point. They're like, you're unfocused, or you clearly haven't researched what my company is all about or what my company cares about, because this is such a generic opening statement. Getting into experience. So the fact that they're putting the dates over on the left is fine. The formatting of it isn't fantastic. Me personally, I like to see dates over here on the right side, but they do kind of separate it out, so it's easy to kind of see the timelines of things. Like they went right from this job to this job in September 2012, and then April 2007 to April 2007, September 2004 to July 2004. So they had a couple of months in between these jobs, which is fine. They went pretty much straight from this job to that job. Like no one's going to care about a small gap on your resume. It's no big deal. Um, One thing that I like is they go into a lot of information about their current job, fair amount of information about the job previous to that, and then the farther their job history goes, they're just like, this is the title that I had. And they're not going into a ton of information about I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this, because this person's resume is already 2 pages long. Now their skills section takes up most of that second page. If we look at this, these are all of the skills that they put on here. This is a lot of skills. This is a lot of stuff to put on here, and then other interests and hobbies, and we'll talk about this in a minute. Me personally, as a hiring manager, I like to see this skills block up at the very top of page 1, and not so much education. This person graduated in 1998, so 25 years ago. They're not going to care about where you went to school or the fact that you have a bachelor's degree. You've been in the industry, you've been working for over 20 years. They're not going to care about where you went to school anymore. So I would move education way down the page. I would probably put your list of skills and then your current job, get all that on page 1. Everything else here is page 2. Now, the fact that you worked at EA Games is kind of a big deal, but if this is what you're doing right now and the next role that you're going to get into is also going to be working in embedded software systems, then this is more relevant than anything that you did at EA Games anyway. So yeah, you were there for 5 years and you shipped a lot of titles, and that's great. But if this is the kind of work that you're going to be doing, then you need to highlight this. If this is the kind of role. Now, if you're going to get back into the gaming industry, then it's going to be more important that you put your EA games on page 1. But then you're also going to minimize the amount of stuff that you talk about at this job, because you really want to focus on the gaming industry, for example. And your skills block, you're going to highlight more about your gaming industry and things like that. But I would love to see the skills block up here and move education all the way down. When we look at these bullet points versus these bullet points are much shorter. These bullet points are really wordy. Bullet points got their name from being short and impactful. So I would reduce the amount of words that you've got in here. No one's going to be sitting here reading all of this. When we skim a resume, we're literally spending like 10, 15 seconds trying to find keywords of like, are you appropriate for this job? If I've got to hunt through all of this text to try to find what I'm looking for, I'm going to stop reading. And especially if I've got to go all the way down to page 2 to go, do you even know C++? For example, if you're applying for a C++ role. But again, this is where I was talking, like if you're going to go apply for a C++ role, you better put C++ first on this list, not second. I don't want to hire a C programmer who also knows C++. I want to hire a C++ person who also is really comfortable in C and Java. But first and foremost, you need to look like a C++ developer. So the wording that you're putting in here is pretty heavy. It's also very technical in nature. So most recruiters are not going to be this technical. They're not going to understand what a lot of this stuff is. Like they're not going to understand the OSI model. So talking about application through link layer isn't going to mean anything to them. So I think being able to build out a resume that can get past HR, as well as building a resume that's going to get past a hiring manager, is going to be a balance that you need to strike. Included monitoring, automated test results, driving manual functional tests. Okay. Yeah, I think you could reduce the overall stuff that you've got in here. When I look at this statement, for example, this is like, I did a thing. And then this, oops, trying to highlight stuff on here is not working. Drove the release of this, including monitoring. So again, this whole bullet point is just, I did a thing. This one, led the software engineering team process improvement project. Okay. So the project. So they had a single project to improve engineering process. Okay. This included migrating the revision control system from Subversion to Git, setting up, maintaining Atlassian, teamwork, etc. Tests also included heavy customization and so on, other customizations. So this is another bullet point of like, I did a thing. Lead architect for security enhancements to Harmony. No idea what Harmony is, so this doesn't tell me anything. Leading the development of security-focused firmware for a hardware security module. This kind of sounds like it should be a separate bullet point. Leading the development of security-focused firmware for a hardware security module. Okay. Bring security technologies like key storage and trust zone into Harmony. Again, I don't know what Harmony is. Provide a technical oversight for security features developed with both silicon and firmware. So there's a lot of stuff on here where it's like, I did a thing, I did a thing, I did a thing, I did a thing. This is a lot right here, but what was the impact of all of this? Like, how did this help the team? Did it make things faster? Did it improve your overall process? Did everybody get 10% more efficient? Was your reporting on team effort better and more accepted by upper management? Like, what was the impact that this had? If you're going for a staff or principal level engineer, your resume needs to not just be, I did a thing, I did a thing, I did a thing. Principal and staff level roles are going to be about, here's how I took the company vision. Here's how I convinced a team of people to go execute on that vision. Here's how I participated. But it's going to be a lot of leadership type of roles, and it's going to be a lot of, envisioning and prototyping and getting people on board, but also talking about the impact of how that helped the company. What I've highlighted here on the resume is a lot of, I did a thing, I did a thing, I did a thing. And yeah, there's some leadership stuff in here. Like I led an improvement project to improve our engineering process. I was the lead architect for, security enhancements and so on. But you're not talking about the impact that had. And that's something that's going to really stand out for a staff or principal level role, because that's a really senior role in engineering. You need to be able to talk about the impact that had. When you get into EA Games, design, maintain low-level commerce package for EA, help multiple teams in implementing in-game commerce. This package was used by FIFA and NHL and so on. Okay, cool. So this is where you're talking about, I did a thing, and then this is the impact. So this is a good impact statement. It's like, what I did went on to influence these major titles based on what I designed Promoted software engineering by creating and teaching courses on UML design, how it can be used in game development. Okay. Promoted in-game commerce across the company. So you went from in-game commerce to something else completely, and then you're back to in-game commerce. I would probably keep all the like microtransaction stuff together. Across the company by acting as the technical rep for EA Sports for the commercial technical strike team. Yeah, I would probably loop both of those together. But what was the impact of this? And what was the impact of this? Like, did this make your team better? Like, how did it make the team better? How many people did you teach? Show me tell me the impact of that. Designed a new commerce service and infrastructure that included data mining, user profiling, and all the flows needed to synchronize entitlements from first parties profiles into EA. So, I mean, I've worked in the game industry. I understand some of this stuff, but like, I don't understand this last part of the sentence. So I'm, you know, and again, a lot of people are going to have that same sort of reaction of like, I don't know what this means. These are words, they're English words, but I don't know what that means. So I think you could simplify a little bit of what you say, but also, again, what was the impact of that? So it's like commerce, 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 and then something else completely. So I would probably put all the commerce stuff together and then put this other point later on. Shipping titles, this is fine if you're going to get back into the gaming industry, or if the company that you're applying to does something about gaming, but you're going to get into this type of work, but it happens to be a gaming company, the fact that you've contributed to major game titles is going to look good. Otherwise, I think you could probably reduce some of the text on here. This one, you didn't talk about any of your roles. Well, the rest of these, you didn't talk about anything about your roles and responsibilities. And frankly, that's okay, because this was a long time ago. It was 15 plus years ago. You don't have to detail every little thing. But if there was work done at any of these other roles here, sorry, highlighting on this has been challenging. If there's any work that you did at these roles that would be relevant to a company where you're going to be applying, you could at least talk a little bit about it. And then we get into your skills. So you got programming languages. I would probably get rid of the proficient, familiar with, and just list them all together. When we read these lists, we already read them as left to right strength order. You also don't want to list absolutely every programming language that you ever know, but you also want to make sure that you're highlighting and capitalizing things properly. Like HTML is capitalized that way, JavaScript has capital J, capital S. Like, those are going to make a difference for people. And so then I would just get rid of the proficient and familiar with portion. And then you can take this out completely. You can take this whole row out. So delete row. Operating systems. Again, for system administration, if you're going for like a DevOps kind of role where this stuff is going to be important, then yes, you can leave that on there. Otherwise, I would drop it down a little bit. It won't be as important. Productivity apps, I would probably take most of this stuff out, other than like Subversion and Git, maybe Perforce, Jira, Confluence. Those are going to be, really well used. I don't know what Bamboo is. No one's going to care about Microsoft Office, especially if it was over a decade ago. So I would take that off. Specific knowledge. This is kind of an interesting thing to put on here. I think that this is really interesting to put on here as like a hyper focus of like, these are things that I know extremely well. But again, I would want to see this whole skills block up at the top of page 1. Move your education down here to page 2. Because you've been doing this a long time. No one's going to care where you went to school anymore. Other interests and hobbies. I generally tell people, like, putting this kind of stuff on a resume is unnecessary, unless you're applying for a job where building plastic models is what they do as a company. You can say like, oh yeah, I do that too. Or you're going to go apply for a job at a gaming company who makes virtual like desktop tabletop games, like Foundry VTT or something like that. Then yes, putting this kind of stuff on the resume is fine. Otherwise, I would take this stuff off completely. If you need room for other things in order to fill up a 2-page resume, I I mean, you could also like remove some of these old jobs and just say, put at the bottom of the page, for a full work history, see my LinkedIn profile. That's what I do on mine because like, no one's going to care as much about how we wrote code 20 plus years ago. It's not going to be as important to people. Um, so I would say, take the stuff off that's more than 10, 15 years and just add a little note on there, like full job history is available on LinkedIn or something like that. Put your LinkedIn profile up here at the top. And maybe your GitHub profile up here at the top as well. So yeah, I would say, and then references, like I would leave that off completely. It's pretty well understood that if they want references, they're going to ask for it. So you don't really need to say like, oh, I'll give them to you if you ask for them. It's like they're going to expect you to give them if they ask for them, but you don't have to put that on the resume anymore. So yeah, overall, again, just as like for a staff principal engineer type of role, you really want to show the impact that you had. That's gonna really stand out most to companies. All right, last resume review. I got to wrap up in about 10 minutes here. So this person chose to leave their name on here, which is fine. Everything else is anonymized. The green on white works out okay. I used to tell people like be careful with color because if they print it out on a black and white printer, the contrast is going to look weird. Nowadays, everybody's going to get an electronic copy. It's very rare that you're going to get a printed resume anymore. So putting links on a resume is fine as long as these things actually link to stuff. But I also like seeing like full URLs on here just in case they do need to like type out the URL. So you got all your contact over here. You got your GitHub. You got your email. You got your LinkedIn profile, which actually goes over to your real LinkedIn profile. And then you got your skills. So I think that this is fine to put over here. You got professional experience. Let me go find the note with this one here. So what they wanted critiqued was the content, how to show my skills and value, and they're going for a front end developer role. So how do I show value to a company? Microsoft Office, Google Suite, I would take this off completely. Like no one's going to care that you're proficient in this stuff unless you're doing like, here's how I do the programming in, Google spreadsheet and whatever. Like I'm going to actually go in and like write Google apt script and whatever. Like no one's going to care about this. I would take it off. If you're doing front end stuff and that includes like photo editing and touch ups and things like that, you can leave that on there. Otherwise, if that's not the kind of role that you're going to be applying to, I would take this off as well because it's not going to be applicable. Now, if you're going to go apply for a job at a startup where a startup is going to need you to wear lots of hats, then putting this kind of stuff on the resume is okay. But for most companies, they're not going to care about these things. If you're applying for a programming job, they're going to want to see a lot more about your programming skills. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. Also, be sure that you're consistent. Here you've got JavaScript with a capital S, but here you've got a lowercase s. So just making sure that you're consistent in how you're doing those things. Education, Bachelor of Science, okay. They really only need the graduation year. They don't necessarily need to know when you started. They may not need the location. Certifications, MIT Intro to Computer Science. Okay, Free Code Camp. Okay, cool. So you got a certification and you link over to that. That's cool. Interests, again, is this important to put on a resume? If it's a music company, then yeah, putting stuff on here about like, oh, I write music and I play piano, then yeah, that's okay to put on there because it's relevant to that company. But to most other companies, they're not going to care about that. They're not going to care that you play board games. They're not going to care that you play trading card games like Pokemon or Magic the Gathering. Like they're just not going to care. Also, be consistent. Again, you've got commas in some of these and slashes on some of these. Like just be consistent on it if you are going to leave it on here. But then also the spacing on this one kind of went down to multiple lines. So just be careful about those. I do know like a colleague of mine is, his name's Jonan and he used to stream on Twitch and really brilliant guy. And he used to say that he liked seeing the human side of who's applying for the job. And so he liked seeing interests on here. Like, oh, you have a black belt in karate, like put that on the resume, no matter who you're applying to. Me personally, I like to see only what's relevant to the job. I'll find out during the interview process, about you. because I'm going to ask you questions about your background and other things that you do and get involved in. So professional experience. So you've had this job now only for a couple of months. And you were also an instructor at America on Tech. Okay, so we'll get into that. Coding teacher at Create and Learn, Algebra 1 support teacher. So now you're getting into like, a background in education. So you have a background in education. Now you're getting into technology, monthly blog where I write technical material. Cool. And then you've got a portfolio site. I would probably try to like group these together in some way. Like put your portfolio on your blog, and that way you've got one link to show. I also noticed over here that was the technical writing. So you've actually got this in here twice. So I would take it off as an interest if you're gonna highlight that as part of your resume. So when we look at the overall professional experience, you came from a teaching background, but that was only a couple of months. So it was like 4 or 5 months of teaching. And you're giving me a lot of bullet points. So in contrast to the resume that we saw before, where the most current job, you had the most information, and everything after that got fewer and fewer bullet points. Here, you're giving me like 4 or 5 bullet points for every job. This one's going to be a lot less important unless you're like, this resume tells me that you're probably going to be a good like coding programming instructor, but you're actually trying to get a job as a front-end developer. So you really want to highlight a whole lot more about what you can do as a developer and less about what you're doing as a teacher. Like it's good to know that, you taught this stuff. You taught HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Here you're teaching, coding concepts and principles and CS terms and so on for various age ranges, which is great. You've got your class size in here. I love quantified information. You're coming in here, you're talking about how you're improving the curriculum and so on. This is fine, but this doesn't tell me about your skills as a web developer. This is a whole background in teaching. So I would probably reduce this quite a lot. I would probably reduce most of this. Like maybe give me 1 or 2 bullet points for these 2 jobs. And Algebra 1 support. Well, if you're doing Algebra 1 support, okay, you were using HTML, CSS, JavaScript, not teaching it. Okay, my misunderstanding. So Algebra 1 support teacher, I mean, you don't need to give me 5 bullet points about that if you're just like a TA. You could reduce this down to like a single bullet point. Like just tell me the most relevant thing I need to know. And that's probably going to be like 30 student capacity class or something. And evaluated students or something. Like find some of the nuggets here. Like everyone's going to have a pretty good understanding of what you're doing as a TA. So you don't need to give us 5 bullet points about that. The fact that you use technology in that role is pretty cool. So I would leave that on here. But this is also really recent. Like when we look at all this stuff, this is all really recent kind of work. And all 3 of these are listed as present jobs. That may raise a flag for some companies. It's like you've got 3 different jobs going on, two different roles where you're an instructor, and then this one instructional specialist at 2U. So you're doing 3 different teaching roles, but you're not really telling me what you are capable of doing as a developer yourself. So again, I would reduce all of this down into less than half of the space that you're taking up now. Publications, that keyword tends to be reserved for people who have actually published like white papers and research papers and things like that. So I would just call this like portfolio work or something. In fact, I would probably move these over to the right column over here and take them off this part. What you want to show, like if we go look at your portfolio site, you're going to want those projects on here. So what I would do is I would minimize this professional experience. It is professional experience, but it's not relevant. I want to be careful with my words. It's relevant to being a front-end developer. It's related to being a front-end developer. It's adjacent to it, but you're not actually a front-end web developer. You're teaching other people how to do it. which is good because that tells me that you're going to know the stuff really well because you're able to teach it and answer questions about it and so on. So you're going to know the stuff really, really well. But you need to list some of your own projects on here. Like put your projects on here, put like show me stuff about your portfolio. Like if I go look at your GitHub, all my projects are available over here. I'm currently learning React. That's fine. Currently working on these things. Here's my resume. We come down here. You've got popular repositories. It's not necessarily the pinned ones. And we see, kind of consistent GitHub. Lots of gaps in here where you don't like contribute hardly anything for like a week or two at a time, or very rarely, during a week, you've only got like a couple of commits, like one contribution, two contributions, single contribution. So I would probably start by making sure like what are your actual projects, and then get these projects on your resume as well. Talk about what you actually built as a developer. I would want to see that on a resume. You've got a lot of stuff on here. Like if I were hiring another technical instructor, this would be a great resume. But for somebody who wants to be a front-end developer, this doesn't tell me enough about your skills as far as what you've actually accomplished and what kinds of project work you've actually done. I've got to go look for that information. And if I've got to go look for it, I'm going to stop reading your resume and I'm going to go find some other resume where I can actually see what they've built. I don't want to have to go hunt for information. You need to provide me that information. So I would probably, I would get at least 2 or 3 projects on here and make that the top portion of the resume here. Like this top, 2/3 of the page should be, here's all these projects that I've done. And then down at the bottom of that page, it would be, here's some professional instructional work that I've been doing to teach other people about web development. And the fact that all 3 of these are concurrent makes me wonder, like, is this under like an umbrella kind of thing? I mean, they're all different dates and times, but like, you've been at this place for a year, you've been at this place for, 6 months, you've been at this place for a couple of months. So I think it's fine, but again, you're showing me that you're an instructor, not a developer. And so you need to show me that you're a developer. And to do that, you need to get some development projects on here. So again, I'd probably go for 2 or 3 projects. Tell me whether it's a solo project or a group project. Tell me the tech stack that you used, but also like how the user uses it. I've got a sample resume that you can go look at. I don't have have it offhand. I do have a voice link for it here somewhere. Resume sample. Is that going to pick up? If I say the words resume sample, it should show up in chat. It's not showing up in chat. So I do have a sample resume that you can go look at. Let me go grab the code for it. All right, so you can go check this out. So here's a resume sample, and this is where I show like, here's how you could talk about projects. Tell me whether there's a solo project and so on. Tell me the name of it, link to your GitHub. If you've got it deployed somewhere, show me a deployment link. That would be fantastic. But then the first thing you should tell me is like, users can blah, 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 blah. Don't say, I wrote this really cool React script that interfaces with Mongo and whatever, and like, you don't tell me what the user actually does. So tell me what the user would use the site for, and then go into the technical detail of like, uses React and Redux to blah, 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 use Mongo, and then, or just list out the tech stack that you built it in. But if you give me a GitHub repo for it, make sure that README file is really well documented. Show me some screenshots of it, like make it compelling for me to go look at it. And if you give me a link to go see the site, make the page that I end up on from like when I click from your resume over to your project, like the actual deployed version of the site, put me on a page that tells me about the project. Don't put me on a page that forces me to log in. like put me on a landing page that shows me screenshots of like, this is what this project's all about. Here's what you can do with it, and like list out the feature set and whatever. Like, make it really compelling for me to see. I've seen a lot of projects where students are like, "Oh yeah, I built this thing using Google OAuth," and you click on the link to go see it, and the first thing you have to do is authenticate to Google before you can see anything about what the website does. So don't do that. Like actually, like put me on a landing page where I can see what's going on with that project and what that's about. Hey Arya, good to see you in chat. Um, cool. So yeah, from that entry level developer point of view, um, I would definitely get some projects on there, and really reduce the amount of teaching content that you put on here. Now, again, if you're going to go apply for another like technical instructor role, this is a fantastic resume. But as a developer, like you don't tell me anything about your development skills. You tell me that you can teach other people this stuff, but you don't show me your development skill. And I think you need to really highlight that on the resume. Alrighty. Well, I got to bounce. I got to be down in the southeast corner of Denver in an hour, and I got to pack up a bunch of stuff. So I got to get on the road. I might stream again later tonight. If other folks have other questions, you can always hit me up on Twitter or LinkedIn. I'm happy to take questions at any time. If I'm ever offline, you can send a whisper over to my chat bot, and it'll start a thread on our Discord community. If you want to join us over on Discord, you can join us over there. But if you want to ask a question anonymously, you can just whisper it over the bot, and it'll actually start a thread on Discord anonymously. And every subsequent message that you send as a whisper to the bot, it'll build a Discord thread for you. And then I can answer that on another stream. So I'll probably stream Tuesday, and definitely going to stream Thursday night. I don't think I've got any sessions this month where I'm not going to be streaming. So I typically stream Sunday morning and Thursday evening, in Colorado time in the US. Um, but I'm going to probably start streaming Tuesdays as well, just in case people have questions and stuff like that. But I've also got like various projects and stuff around here that I'm working on that I'd love to show off too. So discovered my account today. I'll be here more often. Awesome. That would be great. Yeah, so I like to help people with career advice. I do resume reviews on Sundays. So if you want a resume review, you can absolutely send that in anytime. There's a form that you can go find over here, and you can specify whether you want a private review or a public review. And yeah, basically saw it here. And then I'll get these clipped out and I'll get them up on YouTube later on as well. But otherwise, I got to bounce. So let's go find somebody to raid, and then I got to take off. So I'm going to raid and run. Let's go see who else is online. Let's see, C# is on. Haven't raided into him in a long, long time. Or Primogen. I think we'll go right over to C# Fritz. He's working on some SQL Server. Yeah, we'll go right over there. It is National Hat Day, apparently. Cool. All right, let's go set up that raid. Oops, I need to go back to here. All right, folks, we'll catch you over on C# Fritz. Like I said, I'm going to raid and run. But thanks for dropping by. We'll catch you maybe later tonight. I might stream a little bit later this evening as well, just to kind of follow up on some of these other thoughts and ideas. I also want to do some demo on like if you want ideas on how to do company research. These are things that you can do. So we'll go catch you on Fritz's channel, and have a great week. If you have questions about job hunt, interviewing, and so on, absolutely, please reach out to me on Twitter and LinkedIn, and we'll talk to you soon. Cheers.